Alrighty, we are live. If you are watching this on the replay, thank you so much for being here. And as always, drop us a little comment below, #replay. Tell me where you're listening from. What are you listening on, I should say, as well. I'm just going to do my quick little check. I can see that it is working well. If you are tuning in live, thanks so much for being here. I am super excited about today's guest on the podcast. This one is a really exciting one, and I'm going to share why it's an exciting one, it's been an interesting one to prepare for. I'm going to say, and I'm going to share that on the actual podcast. I can see there's people coming in live, which is awesome. Again, if you're tuning in live, drop us a comment, say hello, let us know that you are here. Tell me where you are listening from, because when I am looking here at the comments on my screen, sometimes it doesn't actually tell me what platform you're commenting on. So please just drop a comment, say what platform you're listening on, where you're listening from, and all of those fun things. And I'm not going to keep speaking. I'm going to get started with the show because I am excited. It's going to be a good one. So let's do it. So I'm hitting record. We are recording. Let's do it. Got the wrong bit of paper in front of me. There we go. Let's do this. Hey, you are listening to the Funnels and Growth Show. My name is Gavin Bell, and I've discovered a little bit of a problem. You see, too many entrepreneurs are great at what they do, but they never see true growth. All too often, they rely on luck, hustle, and hope to grow, which, as you probably know, is not the best marketing strategy. So in this show, I aim to uncover the secrets around creating a marketing system that allows you to build your audience, generate more leads, and acquire customers at a profit. Now, on today's show, we have someone that has been there and done it when it comes to growing and scaling companies. And when I first came across this gent, it was through the ClickFunnels world. I think I saw his keynote at Funnel Hacking Live, and that's when I started to pay attention to what he was saying, what he was doing. And it was only when I started to see that literally every single one of my connections on Facebook was singing his praises. They were like, you need to work with this guy. This guy is amazing. The results I've gotten with this guy, I had to get him on the show. So I reached out and we made it happen. He's been featured in Success, Entrepreneur Magazine, Inc. Magazine, CNBC, Fox News, Wall Street Journal, and lots more. He's helped tens of thousands of entrepreneurs scale to 6, 7, and 8 figures. And due to the results that he's achieved, he is now known as the go-to person for helping entrepreneurs plan strategically and scale. So please welcome to the show. Go absolutely crazy. Sat at home listening to this podcast, whether you're making a cup of tea, whether you're driving, just go absolutely wild and introduce Alex Charfen to the show. Alex, welcome. You're still muted, Alex. You're still muted. It says your mic is not connected.
Now I'm not muted.
There we go. That silence was you're building that.
Yeah, I was building some anticipation. Actually, Gavin, I got so distracted by how good your voice is. You have such a great voice that I think I got a little distracted in the intro there.
Brilliant. I appreciate that. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's an absolute honor to chat, and I'm looking forward to our conversation over the next half an hour or so.
Same here, man.
Yeah. Well, let's get started into the business, the serious stuff, which is, Alex, would you rather be the funniest person in the world or the smartest person in the world?
Would I rather be the funniest person in the world or the smartest person in the world? I don't know about that, Gavin. You know, I don't know if I'd want to be either. I think it would be way too much work to be either one of those things. You know, and the reality is I've known a lot of really incredibly intelligent people, and smart doesn't always translate to like good outcomes in the real world. I have some friends that have such high IQs, they actually have a hard time navigating reality as you and I know it. And so I don't know. I think I might turn both of those down. I don't need that much pressure. I like to be me.
Yeah, I like that. I when I was preparing that question, I was like, I think Alex is going to go for the smartest person in the world. But then I thought maybe the smartest person would say the funniest person in the world. So I didn't really know what it'd be. Honestly, Alex, before we went live, I was talking about how this was a really interesting show for me to prepare. So I like to do a lot of preparation on my guests before they come on the show to really get into the content and their mindset and where they're at. And for you, so honestly, for most guests, it's like, okay, go look at their Instagram and their Facebook and their website and things, and you get a kind of idea of what they talk about. But for you, I was going on your Instagram and I was scrolling. I got like 2018, and I was like, man, every single post here is like resonating with me, is making me want to ask more questions. Your content, you know, when you are consuming content of somebody and like every single thing resonates with you, that's what it's like when I consume your content. So you just gave me like this enormous amount of like, whoa, how do I break all of this down into 6, 7, 8 questions that we can talk about for half an hour? So that was a big challenge, which is something that, yeah, I think you should be proud of. I think the fact that you've, you know, created something consistently and had like just an epic message with almost like every single post that you put out is something special.
Well, thanks, Gavin. You know what that tells me is that you and I have a lot in common. You know, I wrote this book called The Entrepreneurial Personality Type. And since I wrote it, I think it's probably 4 or 5 years ago, pretty much everything we've done has revolved around this. When people ask me, who is your avatar? This is my avatar document. It happens to be a book that's available on Amazon. But what your reaction to our stuff tells me is that you're an entrepreneurial personality type. You and I have a ton in common. We're part of the most exclusive, and I would say most important club in history.
Yes, I like that. I actually did a personality test once, and it was like slap bang entrepreneur. So that's awesome. So
No surprise.
It tells me that you're like, in terms of your avatar, you've got that absolutely honed in and nailed down, which is what we're all trying to do, isn't it?
No question.
Yeah. So what I was doing, looking through all your stuff, is like, whoa, you've had some journey from running a window washing service in high school to becoming a Fortune 500 consultant in your 20s, which is awesome, to then losing a property business in the 2007 crash. So I want to ask, how did all of that lead into you doing what you do now, which is helping businesses build systems and scale?
You know, Gavin, if the question is how did all that lead into what I do now, it's because I've always been a natural entrepreneur. You know, I think one of the questions that people ask me sometimes is, when did you know you were an entrepreneur? And the answer is, I don't know exactly when I knew I was an entrepreneur, but I knew I was different from a very young age. And I also didn't feel like the things that worked for other people worked for me. I remember being in second grade and looking at all the other students in the class. I was in mixed second and third grade class. And I remember looking at all the other students and thinking, like, why is it so easy for them to do this? And why am I having such a hard time? And so I was always very different. I didn't get along socially with other students. I didn't really get along with the teachers for the most part either. There was certain teachers throughout my life that kind of saved my life, but I was always different. And so, you know, the windshield or the window washing business was preceded by a candy selling business that I had in junior high school. You know, I've always been doing something. I've always been different than the kids around me. And so I think that is how it's led to me doing what I do now. It's that I've always looked at the world differently, and I've forged my own path. The secret is, you know, I think high level entrepreneurs always look so like intense. It's like, man, look at all the stuff they create and make up and do. And, you know, they don't follow along the path like the rest of the world does. And I always joke around that that's because we can't, you know, we create our own path because we have such a hard time following anybody else's. So I think that's probably the best answer for that.
Yeah, that really, I mean, again, that resonates. Back for me, school wasn't something I particularly enjoyed, and it's been interesting going through that journey, leaving school and kind of going on a different path from pretty much everybody else.
Yeah.
How is that, you know, in your, let's say your 20s, when that's probably prime for normal people, like socializing age, you know, going out, having fun. What did that look like for you? Did you do much of that, or were you very much, you know, focused on the business side?
So my 20s were very interesting. When I was in college, a friend of mine and I started a financial consulting company, and we wrote some software that allowed for automated billing and collections in the late 1990s, right as we crossed over into the early 1990s. I was born in 72. I was in college right around 1990, 91. We wrote this software. We created this company and had a very limited market. We did billing and collections for fraternities and sororities. And then I ended up moving with the software to Florida to work with another company. And I was 20 years old when I moved. I was 21 when I left that company and became a consultant. And Gavin, there's always two ways to tell every story in your life. You can tell it like you're the hero. And this is what that sounds like. I was 19 years old. I started this business in college. I sold it to a partner of mine, moved across the country as part of a buyout, or sold it to my partner and to another guy. Moved across the country as part of that buyout, worked for 8 months in a company, wasn't good enough for me. So I left. And then through going to the right interview, I became a Fortune 500 consultant. That's the highlights. The other side of that story is, I moved across the country. I was in a horrible work environment. It was one of the worst human beings I've ever worked with. This CEO named Cameron Kuhn, who's kind of legendary. If you look Cameron Kuhn up, Kuhn, Cameron Kuhn, Orlando, I worked for the guy who was responsible for taking down downtown Orlando and downtown Jacksonville, like literally imploding both of those areas in the 2000s. And it was horrible. And then I ended up going to an interview with a friend of mine who was interviewing to represent Fuji Media in Florida. And I went with him, not in Florida, sorry, to represent Fuji Media in New York. But I went to a meeting with him when Fuji was in Florida, when he was in Florida. And it was kind of like I was going on the interview to get experience. It wasn't for a real opportunity. And we ended up getting Fuji Media for Florida. And so my 20s, as soon as we signed Fuji, everything in my life changed. Like overnight, I had a Fortune 500 massive multinational account. The next thing that happened was SanDisk called, and SanDisk, the memory company, was just about to put flash memory out into retail and distribution. We signed them. The next call we got was from Fuji Digital. So then I was working with Fuji Media, SanDisk, Fuji Digital cameras. And then the next call we got was Targus mobile computer carrying cases. So we had overnight 4 of the biggest lines that companies like ours had. And so my 20s were full of 12-hour days, 16-hour days, working 7 days a week. I didn't have really good systems or process in my business. So I ended up doing everything myself. I worked so hard and so long that I kind of sacrificed who I was and what I was doing. So in my 20s, I didn't really have a huge social life. I used to go out with clients a couple nights a week, and those were always late nights with a lot of drinking and like excessive drinking. And then I would go out occasionally on the weekend, and it would normally end up the same way, like going out in Fort Lauderdale or in Orlando and excessive drinking and not really getting a lot out of it. I don't like noise. I don't like crowds. I don't like a lot of like club type atmosphere. So the only way I could go out to those things and be comfortable was to be a little like loaded. And so my 20s, honestly, there was a lot of business learning there, and there was a lot of individual personal learning there, but there was also a tremendous amount of destructive behavior. Crazy destructive behavior. The way I worked was destructive. The way that I entertained myself was destructive. And so for me, really, it was more of a learning experience. To give you perspective, when I was 19 in California, I was doing occasional runway modeling and doing some fitness modeling. So now I want to make it very clear. I was not like a well-paid fitness model. Like I don't want anyone getting that idea, but I was in good enough shape that I was a few times called out to do some fitness modeling. So it gives you perspective. I was in really good shape. 12 years later, when I was 32 or 33 years or 31 or 32 years old, Katie, when I had met my wife, Katie, we went to a doctor's appointment. I was 300 pounds. I had a 44-inch waist that did not fit. I was probably a 46 or a 48. And my doctor told me I was his most likely candidate for a heart attack. And so my 20s were very, very destructive. They were destructive physiologically. They were destructive psychologically. And, I spent a lot of my 30s kind of reversing that.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Because I think it's as you know, and some of the questions I want to talk about in the entrepreneurial business world, we always talk about the positives, right?
Yeah.
I think it's really, we talk about the negatives and the bad things that we've done just as well as much as we talk about the good things. Like you say, we talk about the hero's journey and not so much the negative side. So thanks for sharing that. That's really
cool. For sure, Gavin. I think it's the only fair thing to do, because I think that there's an injustice being done with younger entrepreneurs. I'm 47. And I look at the content in the world today for younger entrepreneurs, and here's what it all says. You can make $1 million in 90 days. Everything's going to be great in your life. You can travel the country or the world. You can do everything out of a laptop, have no stress, and your life's going to be amazing, and you will never experience any problems. I can't stand that we're giving an entire generation of entrepreneurs that that impression. You know, the reality is the life of an entrepreneur is a life of obstacles and crisis and challenge and mountains. And let's get real. If we're not climbing Mount Everest, we don't give a shit. And so, you know, this whole impression that people have given that it's going to be easy, I think it's unfair. And so whenever I can, I share both sides of the story. You know, was I 300 pounds when I was 32? Yeah. I mean, all of that's true. Did I build a multi-million-dollar business and accomplish a lot of great things? Yeah. But there was a huge price I paid because I didn't know what I was doing.
I think it's Elon Musk that said he wouldn't wish being an entrepreneur on his worst end.
Yeah.
That kind of sums it up nicely for me. So leading into that, you've got a framework which you call the Billionaire Code, which is 9 levels every entrepreneur must go through from startup to growth. Those of the listeners that are listening that haven't heard of the Billionaire Code, can you just explain a little bit about what that actually is and how you came to create it?
Absolutely, Gavin. So my whole career, I've had this obsessive question: how do you make business grow? It comes from when I was a really young kid. I was born in Latin America. So I was born in Mexico City, moved to the United States at around 4. When I was about 8, my father started a business when we got here. It was called American Concrete Roofing Tile. It was a huge factory, really impressive business. He lost it when I was about 8 years old. Housing starts in the United States went down. The economy had some challenges. So my dad didn't go bankrupt, but he lost his business. And I was there. I watched the business come tumbling down. And I remember thinking, I wonder if there's a way to make it so business grows. Like, how do you make a business grow? How do you make it so that that never happens again? And this was a very immature, young question, but it was one that never went away. And so my whole life, I've been obsessed with the question, how do you make business grow? And so probably about, I would say probably 2009, 2010 timeframe, like right after we had introduced the CDPE, when I started to get a lot of questions from people about how do I grow my business? How do I do this consistently? How do I do it predictably? I proposed this question to myself: is there a clear path to growing a business? And, you know, Gavin, the first answer that came back from my subconscious was, of course not. Every business is different. They're all different. There's no way there could be one way. And honestly, I feel like two sides of my personality kind of got in an argument that day, because I was like, there's no clear path. There's got to be a path. Can there be one? Can I make it for a specific business, you know? And my whole life, I've read obsessively about successful people. And I think what happened was all of the research on human beings that were successful, and then this obsession around creating a clear path of success for the entrepreneur, merged together, and they became the Billionaire Code. Because what it is it's the 9 levels that you go through to go from 0 to 100 million, and the 9 changes that an entrepreneur has to make as they progress through. You know, I think one of the biggest reasons why entrepreneurs don't ever grow the businesses they want is because they don't change their behaviors. And, you know, the thing that's most prominent about the Billionaire Code, here's what I think makes it really cool, is that when you look at it, it includes both where you are as a human being and then where the business is. So what is the question you're asking yourself? And then what is the thing you need to solve in the business at each level? And what I always share with people is when you review the Billionaire Code, that old phrase, what got you here won't get you there, is not good enough. For the Billionaire Code, it's what got you here will kill you moving forward. And I say that very bluntly and very directly, because the way I look at being an entrepreneur is if you do not change your behavior to adapt to the person you're becoming, to become the person who can run the business you want to have, you are going to hurt yourself. You're going to challenge yourself. You're going to frustrate yourself. You're going to frustrate the business. You're going to create negative loops, negative spirals in your life. And so the key to entrepreneurs is changing behavior. The biggest challenge entrepreneurs have is we don't know which behaviors to change. And so the Billionaire Code clarifies those so bluntly and so directly. I'll give you an example. I've been working with Daniel Rosen for 2.5 years. He runs a company called Credit Repair Cloud. Daniel's one of my favorite people on the planet. He's been running his business for 12 years. When we met, he was right at around $1 to $2 million. He was in that little, you know, that very, very, very solid, but very tenuous, very precarious place. He saw the Billionaire Code content. He's been in our coaching program. We've been applying the framework to his business. And in a little over 2 years, he's gone from 2 million to right around 15. And so that level of explosive growth comes from the entrepreneur focusing on what they should focus on. And that's really what Daniel's changed. And so that's kind of the key to the Billionaire Code, is if you're willing to look at it, trust it, and apply where you are, you will see massive changes in your business.
Okay, this is super interesting to me. And one of the questions that came up there was, I think sometimes we get advice where it is, you know, You have to think about, you have to try and be the person you want to be in order to become that person, if that makes sense. So to give like a specific example with Daniel there at the kind of 1-2 million mark, what changes does an entrepreneur, does a business owner have to make at that point to get to the 15 million, to get to the 50 million, to get bigger than the 1.1 to 2 million?
So we take it one step at a time, Gavin. So for me, if you're at around 1 million, the question I ask is, what changes do we make to get you to 3? And if you're at around 3, what changes do we make to get you to 10? These numbers are very important, by the way. So when you look at the entrepreneurial journey, 0 to 40,000 is one very clear step. 40 to 100 is another. 100 to 3 is another. 3 to 1 million is another. 1 to 3, 3 to 10, 10 to 30, and 30 to 100 are all very clearly different steps. When I met Daniel, he was in between 1 and 2. He might have been closer to 2, but he was still doing all his own support tickets. I'm pretty sure he was doing a lot of his bookkeeping. He was completely enmeshed in the business and overwhelmed by the day-to-day. And he had not, at 1 to 3 million, what we tell people is you need to build systems and process around what you do well. And then you need to train a team to do what you do well. And he hadn't done those two things. So when we very first started working together, we built systems and process around what he did well. Then we trained the team to do it. And then from 3 to 10, he let go of all of that. And what he did was, we call it getting into the passenger seat. He now runs his business from a passenger seat. He doesn't lead meetings. He doesn't lead the calendar. He doesn't make all the decisions. He doesn't even guide the tactical day-to-day operation of the business. He coaches his team and comes up with the long-term ideas. And so depending on where you are in the Billionaire Code, we have very specific advice, but kind of the overarching is that as entrepreneurs, we need to turn responsibility over to our team. Once you hit $1 million, you transition from me to we. And Daniel was in the place where he needed to be thinking we, and he was acting like me.
Really interesting. Where can people find the Billionaire Code if they want to check out?
I appreciate you asking. You can go to billionairecode.com. And if you fill out a quick survey, you'll get actually the matrix itself, so you can see all 9 levels. And then we also recently released a book called The Billionaire Code Decoded, and the ebook downloads free at that website.
Awesome. Go check that out, folks. Now, something that really interested me, and I was looking at closely a few weeks ago, was you recently had a notable online entrepreneur or marketer, if we want to call them that, copy the Billionaire Code. Now,
yeah, Dan Locke.
I was going to say, you can name them if you want. Fantastic.
Oh, no, I'll name him. He completely ripped us off. And there's a lot of this these days.
Yeah, totally. And actually, when I saw you posting about this and the way that you were posting about it, which I totally respect in terms of just calling it out and calling the bullshit in the industry, it really got me thinking about some conversations I've had in the past with friends, which is around this, internet marketing space. And the fact that it is just filled with so many crooks and, bad people.
Yeah.
As well as some great people, I must add. And sometimes it makes me feel a little bit disillusioned, and I know it makes others feel a little bit disillusioned. So how do you almost like keep the head in this industry and be like a shining light of, goodness in a world where there is so much bad?
I think part of it is that I have perspective. So one of the things that has happened throughout my career is I've always worked kind of on the cutting edge of technology. When I was a consultant, I was a computer and consumer electronics consultant. We literally sold the first digital cameras ever on a retail shelf. It was called the Fuji DS7. It didn't even have a viewfinder. It was like all of the pain of having a normal camera in a digital camera. And so I've always kind of been right on that edge. And if you look at the edge today, the edge is online marketing. It's businesses that used to be traditionally offline. Now they're going online. It's individuals who used to have to sell person to person. Now they can get leverage lead generation. And whenever you work in the space that is emerging, whenever you're on the bleeding edge of technology, of business, of whatever you're doing, you're also going to find that you're on the bleeding edge of fraud and challenges and people taking advantage. Because when something is new, that's the easiest space to take advantage of. And so, sometimes I have challenges with even being in this industry because things have gotten so bad in some cases. But then I turn around and I look at the lives being changed. I look at the people that I know that are some of the most incredible entrepreneurs on the planet that used to affect people 1-to-1, and now they're affecting people 1 to 1 million. And I look at people who now have leverage to put their stuff out there and get in front of people around the world that they couldn't have before. I look at our business. We have members I think on every continent now, except for Antarctica, but we have members around the world from all over the place. Like sometimes we sign into our membership calls and it's like the United Nations. And there's no way that could have been possible just a few years ago with the technology that was there. So for me, it's understanding that we're in an atmosphere and an environment where there's a lot of people who take advantage, but at the same time, looking at it and saying, how do we use this technology that's being taken advantage of? How do we use it to go out and change people's lives, to help people, to move people forward? You know, what happened with Dan Lok was unfortunate. He copied the Billionaire Code. Like what we're best known for, and what was funny is several people reached out to us and said, hey, this guy's copying you. What's interesting is that in the world of online marketing today, that is so commonplace that some people weren't even surprised. And so, you know, the key, what I've been doing recently is telling people, before you work with somebody, make sure you know who you're working with. There's some qualifiers that my friend Julie Stoyan gave me. I'm going to do these off the top of my head, but I literally have her sheet of questions like near me all the time in case somebody asks. I don't know where it is right now, but she says things like, find a coach who's had people who worked with them for years, not just testimonials, but people who've worked with them for years. And if you reach out, they're willing to tell you that they had good results. You know, find a coach who like shows up, who talks about profitability, who tells you the good things, the bad things, who doesn't have a shiny, happy life where everything's perfect, you know? And she also says things like, a lot less important is nice cars, big house, perfect family, all of those things. You want somebody who actually does what they say they're going to do. And so I think in today's world, it's for me showing up in the best way I can, so that when somebody is choosing between someone like me and someone like Dan Lok, and let's get real, Dan Lok has 3 million followers on YouTube. He's got much bigger presence, much more awareness that I have. But I want to show up in a way so that my, you know, measly little 20,000 followers on Instagram or whatever I have, that will show up in a way that convinces somebody to work with me instead of someone who's going to take advantage of them, like Dan Lok, who literally stole someone else's framework. There's no way he could possibly be teaching the content that we teach because he doesn't know how to do it. And then after his attorney reached out to us and told us that he didn't steal our framework, he went ahead and changed it anyway. So you just know somebody's going to get taken advantage of. So at the same time, where I'm challenged by a lot of what goes on in our space, I also feel the need to defend entrepreneurs and to advocate for them like crazy by going out and outselling these guys if I can.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, I mean, looking at the content that we spoke about at the beginning that you post on, just let's take Instagram as an example, I can see that you're doing that. And I think actually the fact that you came out with the Dan Lok situation and you called him out further shows that you are pushing a certain message of helping these entrepreneurs build their businesses and help more people, which is great.
Thanks,
so,
Kevin.
Obviously, as part of the Billionaire Code, one of the big things that, you know, I see you speaking about a lot is becoming or being the passenger seat, building a team, and moving away from being a not being away from a solopreneur, but moving away from perhaps this kind of freelance mentality of doing all the work, the bookkeeping, the client work, the marketing, the sales, the everything, and moving from there to being, you know, the chief executive, the business owner, the leader. So for those that are listening, because I think there's in this audience, there's going to be a lot of people that are in that situation. For those that are listening, what are some of the first steps that they need to take from going from that freelance role, let's call it, to actually becoming the chief exec, the CEO?
It's a really good question, Gavin. This is a big topic of the conversation for me. So the successful, happy solopreneur is a myth. I just want everyone to understand that. That's a myth. It doesn't even exist. There's no such thing. You know, there's people out there who pretend like they're successful, happy solopreneurs, but they really aren't. And I'm not going to name names, but about 5 or 6 years ago, I coached one of the most successful freedom entrepreneur guys. And I think you know what I'm talking about when I say this. It's the guys who say, you know, grab your laptop and you can travel the world and live in Bali and do whatever you want. And they sell freedom and they sell opportunity and they show people how to live the laptop lifestyle. This particular person had a 36-person team, showing everybody else how to do solopreneur freedom. And as soon as I figured that out, he was like, so what do you think's wrong with my business? And I'm like, I think you're the most incongruent person I've ever talked to. You're saying that you can go be a successful solopreneur and you have 36 people on your team. This is why your clients are not successful. And this is why they're really excited when they sign up for you and really frustrated 3 or 4 months later because you're not even living what you sell. And so for me, solopreneurship is a myth. Solopreneurship is a stage, not a destination. It's like the hardest stage to get through, and you should get out of it as fast as you can. So for those of you who are in that place, here's the advice. So step one is you need to realize you're not a unicorn. And here's what I mean by that. I just want everyone to understand I'm not being mean, but you're not a unicorn. No matter what you do, somebody else can do it. And so if you have any part in your head of the reason I'm doing all of this is because I'm the only one who can do it, well, there's your biggest issue. And your biggest bottleneck right now is that thought process. Because the sooner you realize that not only can somebody else do it, like do what you're doing, there's probably people out there who can do it better. And I would say that even on the stuff you're really good at, there's people out there who can do it better because they're going to be focused 100% on it and you're focused on growing a business. So one is letting go of that mentality that you have to do it all yourself. And then the second one is getting real about the fact that you're going to need to get help. And here's why I say that. I call this the entrepreneur dilemma, the entrepreneur's dilemma. We need more help than the average person to get to where we want to go. That's just a fact. But anytime we have to request help or protection or support in any kind, it makes us feel vulnerable and exposed. Gavin, would you agree with this?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, so 100% of the entrepreneurs I work with feel the same way. And so one of the things that we need to understand is this is true. This is real. Let's validate this. Let's lean into it and understand when we ask for help, we're going to feel vulnerable and exposed, and then do it anyway. And do it consistently and do it in a way where you actually get the help you need. You know, we train solopreneurs to do a 2-week time study where they write down everything they're doing. It gives them tactical measurement of exactly where they're spending their time. They can take that data and now hand it off to somebody else and get that time back. Just doing a time study and getting a contractor, EA or VA that can help you with some of the tactical things you're doing, within 3 or 4 weeks, you'll see your business shift. We do this all the time with people. And so it's first things first is letting go of the fact that this is not how it's going to work for you. You're not going to be a solopreneur unless you really want to live a life of incredible pain and disappointment. Let go of that notion. And then second, realizing, yes, you're really good at a lot of stuff, but nothing you do can't be done by somebody else. Like literally, I've proven that in my businesses over and over again. I've proven that in my clients' businesses over and over again. Can you imagine like if Elon Musk wanted to still do the bookkeeping for Tesla or SpaceX? Let's get real here. Like the faster you let go, the faster things grow. The faster you hand things off, the faster things grow. And then third is getting real about what you're doing and starting to get help. And like I said, it's going to be hard. It's going to make you feel vulnerable. Do it anyway and grow through it.
I love that. And just first of all, the concept of would Elon Musk do bookkeeping is just a funny question that I think we should always maybe ask ourselves whenever we're doing something that we really don't think we should be doing.
Yep.
To give a little bit of context is that I found this really hard. So the first thing that I ever outsourced was video editing. Aside from accounting and all that sort of stuff, I never touched that. But first thing I really outsourced was video editing. And it was really funny for me because I had this dilemma of I really like video editing and I'm good at it. Why would I outsource it? And it was really hard for me to let go. But then as soon as I let go and I actually got my Saturdays back to spend time with my fiance and stuff, I was like, oh, that'll make sense now. Spending 30 quid and getting a full day back is fantastic. This like dilemma. It's so funny. We think it's almost like we don't trust people to be able to do as good a job as we think we're going to do, but I don't know. It's this big.
Well, Gavin, I think it's more than that. See if this resonates for real. 100% of the entrepreneurs I've ever met when growing up, they either gamed the system or survived the system or a combination of both, but the system was never built for them and the system never truly supported them. You know, I've had entrepreneurs who I've talked to that were all A students, valedictorian, went from Stanford to Harvard to some other crazy school. And then I'll say, did you game the system or did you survive the system? They'll go, oh, dude, it was both. Even the ones who are the most successful, because the systems in the world aren't set up for people like us. They're not set up for people who self-determine. They're not set up for people who need a lot of help. They're not set up for people who specialize in very few things and do it really, really well. And so our whole lives, we're trained contrary to who we are. We're trained, do it all yourself. We're trained, don't look at your friend's papers. We're trained, don't ask for a lot of help. We're trained, if you do ask for help, especially in certain environments like school, you might actually get in trouble. Like there was times when I was a kid where I was like, I'm confused. I have no clue. Go to the principal's office. Well, that was weird. And so that patterning for us as children convinces us that when we're older, we need to put on this shield and a cape and be like Superman and go do everything on our own all at once and right away and make it happen. And the sooner we realize that conditioning we had when we were children was unfair, and that conditioning really takes us away from our essence and who we are, because as entrepreneurs, what we really do is we get up every morning, we go into the future, we create a new reality, we come back to the present, and we demand it becomes real. And that process requires help. It requires vulnerability. It requires building a team. And if you want to really leave your dent in the universe, no entrepreneur in history did it alone.
Yeah. You know what it is about what you talk about, Alex, is I think you're probably the first person I've come across that I'm like, he gets me. He finally gets me. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I've been left on this planet on my own for all this time with people that don't understand what's going on in this brain of mine. So it's very cool. And you know something that's so I think I read a post of you before this show, which I was like, oh my God, that is so true. Which was around like entrepreneurs need more help than the average person.
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody, no entrepreneur or anybody talk about that before.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting because we're like I shared there is we put on this veneer that we don't need help, that we're maybe, more superior than needing help due to this system that we've grown up in. But we actually need more help than the average person, right? From just help in terms of outsourcing stuff, but also probably in terms of like what's going on in our heads, because we are all 100%. A little mad.
So well, and Gavin, when you say that we need more help with what's going on in our heads, one of the most common things we recommend for our members is therapy. We put most of our members into a very specific EMDR therapy. I would just want to make it clear, when I recommend therapy, I'm being specific. For entrepreneurs, especially those running companies, I like EMDR because it's not talk therapy that causes you to rehash your history. It's actually much more direct and much more process driven. But yeah, I think when you look at it as entrepreneurs, we are convinced we should need less help. And the reality of entrepreneurial success is managing and learning how to get the most help. Because let's get real, the entrepreneur who manages the most help wins. Look at how many millions of man hours Elon Musk has dedicated to him right now. Look at how many millions of man hours Jeff Bezos has dedicated to him right now. That is all those two individuals getting massive layered international help. So for any entrepreneur who's like, I've got this, I'm like, man, you're missing it.
That's really interesting. What is EMDR therapy then?
So EMDR therapy it's the name kind of sounds like science fiction. It's eye movement desensitization and reprogramming. Very big name for a type of therapy that works on trauma. In my experience, working with entrepreneurs for the last 3 decades, 100% of us have severe trauma that affects us in the current day. And a lot of times, the stuff we don't remember from our past, the periods we're not clear on, those are usually traumatized or traumatic periods. And by processing those periods in the present, we can lower reactivity. We can become more present, more aware. We can have more of ourselves in the present day. And so EMDR works really well for entrepreneurs because with our personalities, when we go to a talk therapy and the therapist sits across the room and you tell them a whole bunch of stuff and they say, how does that make you feel? Then you tell them a whole bunch of more stuff and they go, how does that make you feel? By the third time that they go, how does that make you feel? The answer is going to be something like, it makes me feel like I want to get the heck out of this room. Or I want to yell at you for asking me how it makes me feel rather than tell me what I should do. And EMDR is completely different. You go in, they take a history of who you are and where you've been, and then you target traumatic experiences throughout your lifetime. And I've been doing this therapy since I was 26, so on and off for 21 years. And I've recommended it now to thousands of entrepreneurs. For the first 5 years I did it, I never told anybody about it. I was so ashamed. I felt shame. I felt guilt. I felt broken. I started sharing it with people. The first person I ever shared it with told me it changed his life, thank God. And then I started sharing it with people probably, 15, 16, 17 years ago. And in hundreds of entrepreneurs, I have never had anybody come back and say it doesn't work. 100%. This morning, I was on a call with my executive assistant, with Brooke. She's our operations assistant. She works in my company. She actually got my therapist's information and booked a call with her. So she sees my same therapist. She was telling me this morning just how amazing it was for her. And so it's one of those therapies that in a single appointment, it can massively reduce pressure and noise and make you feel more present and aware.
Wow, that's amazing. I've never heard of it, but it's definitely something I'm going to go check out. Because I've thought, growing up, when I thought of therapy, I always thought something wrong. There's something wrong with you need to go to a therapist. Then I had a bit of a change of my mindset randomly over a conversation with my barber who went to therapy. And I was like, right, let's have a conversation about this and see why. And he was like, you go to the gym, you train the body, you work out to try and get fitter, to try and get stronger. But we don't ever really do that for our brains. We never go get our brains checked out to make sure that we're functioning 100%. And I was like, that's a fascinating topic.
Yeah.
So I went to therapy myself and did 6 weeks or so and enjoyed the process of it. And it made me think, like, I think this is something that we need to talk more about is therapy, and it's okay. You don't have to, have something wrong. I'm doing this inverted commas, have something wrong to go to therapy. Like, go try it. And like you say, EMDR, if 100% of people are saying it works for them and changes their life, then that's definitely worth checking out.
I just look at it as another checkbox on optimization. What, like you said, I optimize my diet. I optimize my hydration. I mean, I have a rehab center built into my house. I was on an electric stimulation machine earlier today, optimizing the muscles in my face. I use PEMF. I use an infrared sauna. There's all these things. To me, EMDR just is one more thing on that list, so that I'm strengthening myself mentally, nutritionally. I'm breathing the right way, I'm moving the right way, and I'm like cleaning out the mental clutter that I have, that every human being has.
Optimization. That is my favorite word. Alex, we are going to jump into a game. Let's do it.
Okay, I'm in.
Time for the game round. It's like the Highland Games, but on a podcast.
Are we going to be doing, what is that thing where they throw the big huge tree thing?
Oh, now you've put me on the spot.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Tossing the caber.
Yeah, that thing. That's my favorite. Watching that was hilarious.
Yeah, great fun.
So, I ended up taking a tree branch outside and trying to do it myself. I hurt myself a ton when I was a kid.
Those things are heavy. You don't want to, if you've got a bad back, you don't want to be doing that. Right. The rules are simple. We're playing the 5-second rule. I have 10 different cards here with 10 different statements on them. And you've got 5 seconds to give me your answer to each statement. Now, I don't know what's going to be on these cards, but essentially it's going to be something like name 3 types of ice cream, and you've got to say chocolate, vanilla, strawberry within the 5 seconds.
Okay. Dang.
You get the point. If you don't get the point.
Okay.
Some of the things might be quite obscure, so you might have to think differently. Some of them might be as simple as 3 types of ice cream. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready, but I feel a lot of pressure.
This is why we play a game, because this is where we get to really know the guest. I think the last guest got 6 or 7 out of 10. So that's the kind of ballpark we're looking for.
Okay,
let's do this. Name 3 things that you can read.
A book, a newspaper, and a magazine.
Nice. Good start. Solid start. Name 3 car parts.
A muffler, a tire, and a shock absorber.
Nice. I know you like your cars. Love it, of course. Name 3 Tom Hanks movies.
Oh man, Castaway, Big, and
time out.
Dang it.
Tough one. Name 3 reasons to be put in jail.
Arson, theft, and violence.
Nice. Just in time. Then we have name 3 characters in the film Shrek.
Shrek, the donkey, and Shrek's wife or baby.
Nice. Next one is it's random. Name 3 names for a teddy bear.
You broke up. Name what?
Name 3 names for a teddy bear.
Fluffy, Bear, and Cuddles.
Name 3 things that you might cook on a barbecue.
Steaks, shrimp, and pork.
Nice. Name 3 things that you put on your arm.
A bracelet, a wristwatch, and suntan lotion.
Lovely. Name 3 hair products.
Gel, mousse, and hairspray.
Wow, we're on a roll. Final one. Name 3 things at a wedding.
Wedding cake, wedding dress, and a tuxedo.
Nice.
9 out of 10, baby.
9 out of 10. The Tom Hanks one put you off, but that is some score. Well,
Tom Hanks crushed me.
yeah. Yeah, that's something you hear every day. Now we are going to finalize this podcast with the rapid fire round.
Okay.
Time for the rapid fire round. 10 questions, 10 answers, no context. Are you ready?
So Scottish. So the rules are simple. I'm going to read out 10 different questions. You got to give me your answer, but you cannot give context. Although I might ask you for context if I'm particularly interested.
Okay.
Cool. Number 1 is your favorite book.
Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, great one. Favorite word.
Momentum.
Most hated food.
Eggplant.
I think that was the last guest, Brittany. I'm sure she said eggplant as well.
Well, it's the worst food on the planet, so makes sense.
Biggest pet peeve, either business or personal.
My biggest pet peeve, business and personal, is when people speak to me from their veneer, not who they really are. I can feel it, I can understand it, and I can't stand it.
Yep, fair. What's your dream job as a child?
What was what?
Your dream job as a child.
Honestly, as a child, I wanted to be a fire truck. Or at least that's what my mom used to tell me.
A fire truck.
I don't know that I really understood how it worked.
What's your favorite music genre?
Probably classical, specifically Baroque harpsichord music.
Wow, cool. What's your drink of choice?
Water.
Nice. Solid. Are you a morning or a night person?
I'm more of a morning person. I like to get up early and have some space.
Nice. Would you rather cuddle a baby panda or a baby penguin?
Definitely a panda.
Yeah, always. And finally, what is one parting piece of advice that you'd like to give the listeners?
Well, I like to, if anybody asks me parting thoughts, we have this phrase in our membership, and it's also part of our marketing. It's like our tagline: there is nothing wrong with you and you are not alone. And here's why I say that, especially to anybody listening to this podcast. If you're an entrepreneur, you've probably also always felt different and isolated and alone in some way. Even though you've been part of social circles and been part of other things, you've always felt like you were kind of outside of the norm and different from everyone around you. And I want to confirm for you that that's true. Throughout history, the person who doesn't show up like everyone else, look like everyone else, or sound like everyone else is exactly the person who went on to change the world. And today's society has this broken equation that if you show up different and you talk different and you're not like everyone else, we need to fix you or medicate you or diagnose you. And the reality is that history has proven that the person who isn't like everyone else is like that because they're extraordinary. And so if you've always felt you were different and you've always felt you were alone and you've always felt like you weren't like the rest of the world, let's just confirm that right now and make it real. Because here's the fact. If you're listening to Gavin and I, and you felt different and you felt isolated and you felt alone, then I have news for you. So has every incredible human being throughout history who has changed the world. If you read about them and you study them, 100% of them felt exactly like you and I did. And I want you to know it doesn't matter what diagnosis or disorder or disease or issue or challenge or whatever is in front of you today, the obstacle is the way, like Ryan Halliday says in his book. And for no matter what you're facing, one of us has faced the exact same thing or even worse and has gone on to overcome it and change the world. So it doesn't matter where you are right now. If you have felt like you are that person who needs to rise up and make a difference and change things and make this world a better place, then I want to confirm for you that you are part of the most important club in history. And anyone who you remember, anyone who matters to be remembered is just like us. And that is your tribe. That is your birthright. That is who you are. And don't ever forget it.
Wow. That was powerful.
Thank you.
And I felt that. That's yeah. If you're listening and that resonated with you, then get that written on your wall. Like, remember that and feel that, because I think the norm is to feel, if you feel different, is for it to be a negative experience. Whereas what I got from that is own it. That's a positive experience. Like use that to your advantage. Alex, it has been an absolute pleasure. I've honestly loved these last 48 minutes or so. Please let everybody know, because I know there's going to be people that want to learn more about you, find out more about you. Where can they find out more about you? Where can they listen to you, see you, and all of those fun things?
Well, Gavin, the best place is probably my podcast. We have a podcast called Momentum for the entrepreneurial personality type. If you go to momentumpodcast.com, you can check them out. They're usually 10 to 20-minute episodes. It's me about 80% of the time. Sometimes we bring in members to share their experience, but most of the time it's me with giving a single issue and a single solution to entrepreneurs. That's a great place. So that's Momentum for the entrepreneurial personality type. You can find it on iTunes or momentumpodcast.com. And then I also have a really cool opportunity. It's cool that we're filming this right now because next week, October 6th, 7th, and 8th, I've got a event called Momentum Masterclass, where for the first time ever, for 3 days, I'm going to be recording some of the content that's going to go on our platform, but I'm going to do it with a live audience. So if you're available October 6th, 7th, and 8th at 12 and 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, I'm going to be recording a couple hours of content in the morning and a couple hours of content in the afternoon. And all you have to do to register for it is go to momentummasterclass.com, and we'll make sure you get reminders. The only warning is there's no replays. You have to be there live because we want to maintain our integrity with the people who are paying for the content. But we feel like having a live audience to record it the first time does that. And so I'd love to have you there if you're interested.
Yeah, absolutely, folks. Please, please, please go and do that. I'm going to get signed up because that is going to be absolutely insane. Go check it and go and check Alex's podcast. It's brilliant. And if you enjoyed this and some of the things that Alex said today, you'll equally love that. Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure. Like I say, for those of you that are listening, if you want to learn more about Alex and all the fun things that he's just spoken about there, you can head over to mrgavinbell.com/podcast, and we will have links off to Alex's podcast and also the masterclass as well. And finally, if you enjoyed this, please be sure to screenshot your phone right now, pop it onto Instagram stories, tag me and Alex with your biggest takeaway. And yeah, love having you here. See you very, very soon.
Thanks, Gavin.
Awesome. That is the podcast over. Alex, thanks so much for that. I'm just taking a look at some of the comments that came in during that. Shelley says, that was brilliant. Thank you. Robert Collins is saying, you go to the gym to strengthen the body. Mental strength and attitude is everything. We've had people from South Africa, Cumbernauld, people listening on YouTube. Awesome. Alex, that was truly amazing. For those of you that are listening live or watching on the replay, please be sure to go check out Alex's stuff, momentummasterclass.com, October 6, 7, 8, 12 till 2 Central Time.
Mm-hmm. Central US, 12 and 2 Central US.
12 and 2 Central US Time. Go check that out. And also the Momentum podcast. Go and check that out. Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure. We will still be in the green room when I hit end. For those of you who are watching live and replay, thanks so much for being here. And we'll see you all very soon.